Whether you know it or not, you contributed some to our trip to Peru. So thank you. You're so generous. And thank you to the elders who approved that. And what we're going to do today is we're going to tell you a little bit about our trip. Laura's going to give you some of the details of what we did and where we went and why we went and all that stuff. And then Jay's going to give you a little bit of his perspective, and then I'm going to preach at you because of it. So anyway, Laura, you want to go and start?
So the next slide has a video.
Oh, yeah. You want to tell them?
Yeah, we traded off. We did plan this, but.
It does work.
Okay, perfect. So this video is the community we worked in. It's called Pedregal Grande. I want you to notice a few things. It's about a 4-minute video, so I'm not going to just tell you about the video. But this is us in the bus after we left from the clinic, leaving from the town as we headed back to the place where we were staying about 35 minutes away. As you're driving along there, you might notice the trash on the sides of the road there, right there beside this canal. It's a pretty arid region. We were thinking, like Peru, mountains. Yeah, no, not here. Here it was flat and dry and kind of like home. You can see the dusty roads. This is an agricultural area, and so they actually use these canals to help water their fields. You might notice here in a minute there's a horse pulling a cart. We also saw some horse-drawn plows. There were some tractors. You farmers out there will appreciate that there were, but they were small, and it looked like farming from 100 years ago. Not that I was here to see it, but what I would have pictured farming 100 years ago here. Very small fields, and still a lot of manual labor and a lot less automated than what we have today. But the trash along the side of the road is evidence of an endemic problem in that region of that they don't have a sanitation program. That's just, people don't want the trash in their house. They dump it on the side of the road. Some people might burn it. Others might not. Someone else might come along and burn it, but it just stays there, or it gets knocked into those canals that they're using. So this is the city that we worked in. The interesting thing is we were staying about 35 miles away from this city. There was nowhere to stay in this community. As you can see, it's pretty rural in this part. When you see the houses, many of them have some cinder block walls, but some thatch walls made out of bamboo type thatch. Just not a very, it's obviously, what you think of when you think of poverty, very poverty-stricken region. The city we stayed in was about 35 minutes away. It was a town of 300,000 people. It was a bustling city. I mean, there's cars everywhere. As you can see, you're hardly seeing any vehicles on the road here with us. This would be rush hour traffic, when we were leaving at the end of the day here. So that's rush hour. But going back into the city, there were lots of cars, lots of these little moto cars that were like motorcycles with a little cart on the back that people just ride on everywhere. There was a university across from the hotel we were staying in. We ate at real restaurants every night. It was a city. There was money in this city, 35 minutes away from this poverty region that we were working in. And it's just the disparity between the two was just so profound that it just touches your heart in a way that you're like, how can people live in abject poverty like this, that close to people that are living in wealth? Maybe not the same as American wealth, but still. So a few other things about the community. Our large purpose here was to run a health clinic. In Peru, healthcare is actually covered, especially for these people that live in poverty. They have the equivalent of what we would call Medicaid here. It's free for them to go to the doctor. Their medications are not free, but the doctor visits are. So why would we bring a medical clinic into this community when they have free healthcare, right? The nearest clinic to this community is a 15-minute walk, and as you can see, probably most people are on foot. The nearest pharmacy to this community is a 15-minute drive from this community. And so there's still, in spite of the fact that they have free healthcare, there's still a lot of need. The community itself is, a lot of the things we treated were basic things. Lots of fungal infections due to lack of proper hygiene and access to clean water. There's a lot of cirrhosis. Some of that was due to the fact that chicha is a very popular drink there. It's an alcoholic fermented corn drink, basically. They even give it to their kids. I mean, it starts young. And so that's a big reason for cirrhosis. Their water supply is contaminated with hepatitis A and E. coli. And so that was a big part of what we were working on this trip. So we ran a healthcare clinic. Olive Branch Ministries is who we traveled with. But we also were partnered with Texas Tech University through their medical school's public health program. So we had some medical students and some nursing students and others with us. And so a big part of what we were doing during the course of this week was educating the people on how to be healthier, how to, as we click forward, how to live your lives in a way that promotes better health and a better life. This picture right here is showing a latrine. So what you're seeing is a playground. We'll talk more about that playground in a minute. I think Clint's covering that. But at the back there, you can see a little building that's like painted with a flower.
The laser doesn't work.
Well, anyway, you can see that little building back there. That's a latrine. As far as we know, it might be the only one in the community. So the house that we were running our medical clinic out of was owned by one of the city fathers. He really, really wants to see his community do better. He's a volunteer, he's a servant, and he lets our group that we travel with come in. They've been going into this community for about 5 years, and each time they've worked out of his home. He didn't have a bathroom either. And it's a fairly large house, if you will, though fairly empty. And so it didn't take much for us to go in and put up our sheets and, make medical rooms and things like that. But as a thank you, Olive Branch Ministries, a couple of years ago, were able to build a bathroom for him so that we could use this bathroom when we're there for the trips, but also so that he has 2 toilets now in his house. That's the exception, not the rule. Most of the other houses don't have a toilet. Most of them do not have an outhouse. They just go outside. Thus the reason for the contaminated water supply and the issues that go along with it. So the education piece, this latrine was built by the Public Health Initiative that went out a year ago. And it hasn't seen as much use as they had hoped because it takes time to retrain, your mind. And so these kids that are playing on this playground, that's where it was starting. The kids are starting to use the latrine. The kids are starting to understand, hey, we don't just go outside. We go in this latrine. And it's set up so that it can be properly managed and composted, and some of that waste and E. coli and hepatitis A don't go right back into their water. If you want to click on, we'll see, here's a couple of more pictures around the community. Those guys on the back of that vehicle are all loaded in on one of the few moto cars in town, the little motorcycle vehicles we were talking about. I don't know how many people they have in it, but I'm sure there's at least 3 or 4 in the seat, and all those guys on the back. Anyway, so Clint and Jay actually got to ride on one of those, and that was kind of neat. This little lady on the other side of the screen here, as the first day we got to walk around the town and take a tour and really just get to see where we were working and the lives these people are living. She was out burning her trash, barefoot in her dirt streets. She was very sweet. We all said hi to her as we went by, but that's the norm. There's no process for this. There's no process for living a life that's cleaner and better for our health overall. And so again, that's what we were doing here. This is the sign for our medical clinic. They started advertising it. They had this sign up on this house where we were working several weeks beforehand so that people knew we were coming and they would see it. They got the word out. People were lining up for our clinic at 2 a.m. is what we were told. They were lining up at 2 a.m, and we weren't getting there till about 8:15. And so they were waiting for hours to see us. And we would give them medication and we would give them things. We actually had some counselors with us as well. Another lack of care issue in Peru is while they have great community, these people know each other, they know their neighbors, they care about each other, but their medical system doesn't cover mental health at all. And we encountered quite a lot of mental health concerns and just stress and issues. And so actually our little mental health counselor ladies were very busy that week working. You can see kind of the inside setup of our clinic, our little pharmacy where I was having to hand write out some labels because we didn't have stickers for what I needed. In Spanish, I got to really practice my Spanish, but my translator helped. And that's just a little picture of that doesn't look like an American clinic, and yet it worked. And we were able to serve through that. Clint and Jay got to do a lot of pill counting because, to take care of that many people, I think we saw around 800 people over the course of 4.5 days in our medical clinic. The other cool thing that we got to do on this trip was, there's my pill counters and my pharmacy crew. They were good pill counters. These are some of the kiddos just kind of waiting out in the lines and playing, like they were just hanging out in the street. But this picture shows one of the other really cool opportunities that we had on this trip to go out into the community. There were a number of elderly women. You don't really see elderly men in this community. They just don't live that long, unfortunately, but that were basically homebound. And so, there are some community health workers. They'd been in communication with our team that lives in Peru and sets this stuff up. So they knew, whose houses we were going to visit. Jay and Clint got to tag along and go on these visits. So I'm going to let Jay tell you a little bit more about that. But they went, I think, over the course of a couple days into about 20 different homes, 20 or 25 different homes, to see patients in their home that could not get out to go see them. And I think that was one of the most eye-opening experiences for Jay. So that's kind of the basics of what we did. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about what it was like being in the community, in the homes, and what he took from this trip. Thank y'all again.
All right, I'm just going to start this off with saying that everybody's going to say that, like, everywhere else in the world is, like, super poor and their living is not good. You're never going to get it until you, like, actually go and, like, see it for yourself and experience it. I think we went to a total of 14 houses when we did the home visits, and out of all of those 14, 3 of them had concrete floors. None of them had like a full wall around them. Most of them just had thatch, and most of the thatch wasn't even complete. A lot of the people kept animals, like all of their livestock, family, in their houses, and it was very eye-opening. They cooked on an open flame in their houses with most of the time nowhere for the smoke to go. And so most of the people had breathing problems.
For the deaf people.
Yep, okay. Lost my train of thought.
Cooked on open flame.
Yeah, huh?
Skip back.
Back up. I'm thinking.
Yeah, but when he said that most of them, only 3 of them had concrete floors, well, the rest of them, it was dirt floor. I mean, it's not like, they had concrete and everyone else had, these nice wooden floors. No, it was dirt. And so it was very eye-opening just to see what a home is like in these other countries. And so, thank you all. Anything else you want to say? Okay, all right.
We're going to sit down.
Okay, they're going to sit down. Yeah, so these little moto cars that Laura's talking about, it's basically a repurposed Yamaha motorcycle. Okay, you just take some pipe and you build a little frame on the back and you start carrying people in the back of it. And this is the primary vehicle. I mean, buying a big, actual, is it not? We're good. Oh, he can't hear. So buying an actual, truck or car is out of reach for most of the people in this community, in these communities. And so you can see this. I think one of the things that stuck out most to me when we're out walking around in this community, and I was thinking about this as we're taking our tour, we're walking around in the sand out there, in a climate that's more like Roswell, New Mexico than it is beautiful Machu Picchu, okay? One of the things that you see is that you can tell that things have been built at different times. I mean, in certain parts of the town, there are power lines, okay? But then there's just a piece of insulated wire, Romex, basically, going from those power lines straight into that house. You can see things like, a place where I can't remember which country it was, maybe it's France, had put in these big water tanks for clean water for people, but they're empty. You can see lots of things like that where there has been some effort to build infrastructure for this community, but there's no one to maintain it. It's there. We came in, we did a good thing, but it's just fizzles out and breaks down, decomposes, turns back to the chaos that it once was. And I'm going to come back to that thought here in a little bit, okay? I'm going to come back to that thought here in a little bit. So why do we go? A new command I give you, John 13. Love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. And we've heard this. I mean, we see this all the time. We see this on coffee mugs. Okay, some of you may have this embroidered on a throw pillow there at your house. It sounds great. It sounds lovely. Oh, loving each other. Oh, I love that. Okay. But that's hard. That's hard. The who, what, where, when, why, and how, that takes wisdom. That takes strength. And it can be very gritty. It can be very difficult to do. There's a lot of courage that has to go into loving one another. Our trip was just, we got to be, I mean, this isn't the Pattersons leading the charge. This is, hey, Pattersons, y'all want to come along? We need a pharmacist. Clint and Jay, y'all can tag along. Sort of. But there's a group of people that are trying to go make a difference in the world. They see a community that needs love. And not just, oh, you're lovely the way you are, you're perfect the way you are, you're just accept yourself. No, these people, they need basics. They need just everyday knowledge that we take for granted. Maybe, there we go. In 2 Corinthians, we're told, for what we preach is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus. Your servants for Jesus' sake. For God, who said, let light shine out of darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. So we are here to shine. And by shining, I mean we're actively bringing light. Shining is not a passive thing. Shining is active. Shining is doing. I don't know if you realize this. We're pretty spoiled to this. But the default of this world is very dark. The default of this world is decaying, is rotting from the inside out. It is not a pretty thing, and we just take that for granted that things work. One of the quickest ways to make a house fall apart is to move people out of it and just let it sit there. You just let it sit there. No one's maintaining it, and that thing is going to fall apart. We can't be the kind of people that are passive, that are just the kind of people that let the world fall apart around us. We cannot do that. That hurts others. That hurts us. It's not just about today. We need to be looking long term. One of the things that when in that video that, I don't know if you paid attention to this, but if you think back, all of the walls, there's very tall walls. There's not like a house front right there. The reason for that is because the people in that community and communities like it, they live for today and maybe tomorrow. And so you've got to make sure that your stuff isn't taken by someone that's only living for today. The number of When we first got there, it's like, man, I expected people to have chickens here and stuff, you know? Well, once we got to go do home visits, we saw they have chickens, they have turkeys, they have sheep, okay? They have animals, but they keep them in their house because the poverty is so rampant. The trust of other people taking your stuff is so low that they keep their stuff in their house because someone that doesn't have may come and decide they want yours. And when your family doesn't have their eggs for the day, for the week, for whatever, then you've got nothing. You've got nothing. There's not going out in the store to buy more. You don't have money. And so there is just a darkness about the default of life. There's not light there. So what did we go to do? Okay. We went to teach. Laura commented on this latrine here. You can see the little like flowers and stuff on it back behind the kids. You know, as far as we know, it's the only one in town. These people in these communities need the basics. They need to be taught. They're not dumb people. They just don't know. Okay? They're just ignorant to the ways of the world. They don't understand microorganisms. Okay? They don't understand that if you go what they call up on the hill, in a place where there are no hills, that's their euphemism for going out back to take care of business. All right? That when you're doing that and the whole community is doing that, well, then that's how diseases spread. They don't know. What they need is somebody to teach them. Somebody to teach them that just the basic things that we take for granted are important. It's good for you. It's good for your neighbor. It's good for your future generations that you take the few extra steps to walk down to the latrine, that you on occasion take time out of your day to clean it out. That's important. And we take the fact that we have bathrooms in every building with nice toilet paper. We get griping when we get the cheap toilet paper, okay? We take that for granted. They have to be taught the basics because they have not had that privilege. Let me go back. So we brought knowledge. Another thing that we didn't put a picture of there. There's a group. So the guy that's heading this one up, he's out of Florida, raises cows and stuff like that, and they're trying to bring some agricultural solutions to this community. One of the things that we see is that lack of nutrition. Again, lack of knowledge. People don't understand just basic nutrition. You can see that in we saw a lot of people that were very anemic. Iron is not plentiful in their diet, okay? You just don't get it. You eat what you can get to survive, and that's about it. And simple things like iron, you don't find it in the diet. And so what they've done in a different community, a neighboring community, is they started making what they call iron bread, where they take goat's milk, dehydrate it, and then use that in bread because it's fairly high in iron. And what they've actually seen is there is a noticeable difference in child growth rates. I mean, very significant difference because they get enough iron. Just knowledge. We brought resources. Like Laura mentioned, we brought medicine. Simple things. I mean, you got athlete's foot from walking around barefoot all day, okay? Other issues that can be treated with over-the-counter stuff, they just don't have it. This playground, a resource to draw people to. Jay got to help build this. Oh, Jay's over there. Jay got to help build this because it draws the kids there, gives them something to do, but it also gets them close to that latrine to get them to develop those habits. Because you old people, it's hard to get you guys retrained. Mm-hmm. We all know it, okay? Yeah. But we're bringing things, right? Now, this isn't to toot our own horn here. This is a lesson. All right, so what does that mean for us here? Okay, there are opportunities to teach here. And we have shied away from that. Okay? We have shied away from that responsibility because in the past there are a lot of examples of it done very poorly. We talked about loving one another. That teaching needs to be done in love. And we've seen it you've seen it in real life, I'm sure. You've seen it in movies, that angry old preacher, these kids and they're dancing. We got to put a stop to it. That's not in love, right? We've seen it in all kinds of things, the teaching in love, and we're shying away from that. And our culture, our society is suffering from that. And you can do it wrong. It's very easy to do it wrong without love. But because we're shying away from it, we're not doing it in love. We're not reaching out to people. And that's something that we need to fix. That harvest is plentiful out there. There are a lot of people that are not good at life. We're not actually all that good at life, and a lot of times. And we need each other to help teach us how to be better, be who God has called us to be. Not so that we can make it into heaven, but because the world is better when we are who He calls us to be. Because we are actively trying to shine in this world. Loving's hard. How to love is hard. How do you provide resources without enabling? How do you provide gifts without spoiling? How do you give somebody what they need and not just what they want? How do you give things that you really want yourself, but you don't really need? That's hard. The world does not need us to be groveling. Oh, look at me, I just feel so bad. I've been so blessed, it's unfair that I was born here in the United States. I need to ask for repentance. My family, I got 2 parents. And people don't have that. It's just grovel. Please forgive me for having good things in my life. That's not what the world needs. The world doesn't need you apologizing for being good. The world needs you to bring good, to teach good. That's what the world needs. The word privilege right now is a big buzzword. It's a big buzzword. And you're privileged. No, you need to be the type of people that bring privilege to others, that teach them how to privilege their next generation, to privilege their community because they're there. It does no good to tear down the good things in this world. That does nobody any good. We need to be fighting against the darkness, bringing the light to this world. Luke 17:21, I don't have this on the slide here, but tells us that the kingdom of God is in your midst. It is here among us. It is our job to bring that to the world. We shine light in the darkness. That's what we've been tasked with. Again, that's not to say that's what your ticket to getting into heaven. No, it's because the world is better when we Christians do the things that we're made for in this world. The community that we were in, we talked about, the maintenance and building for the future. We have that same task here. Our church, our community, we take maintenance. Some of you are high maintenance. We take maintenance. Because if we don't take care of each other, if we don't take care of what has been built, it is very hard to build community back. Very hard. We saw that after COVID lockdown stuff. It is very hard to build back community. It takes maintenance. And it takes building for the next generation, and the next generation, and the next generation. We think of generational wealth, building grandparents, parents, saving for things to take care of stuff, to take care of that next generation that you can pass on to your children, they can pass on to their children. We are doing the same, we need to be doing the same thing here. Building our community for the next generation to come in, and empowering that next generation to come in and to be the leaders and to take the reins. We're not just here to ride that horse until it dies. Because yeah, it's good for a while, but it's really sad afterwards. I would encourage you, if you get the opportunity to go see the world, to go see a place where you can see we are the exception, not the rule. Things like toilet paper is the exception. A bathroom in your house is the exception. Washing your hands regularly is the exception. Wearing shoes when you're out doing things outside in the dirt is the exception. Using utensils, your fork, your spoon, is the exception. Not to feel good about yourself, but to see that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. That's us. We're the workers. Once again, I want to thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to go. Thank you for giving my son the opportunity to see a world outside of Hale County. I know it's glamorous, Hale County. But when you get out there, you see it actually kind of is. Talking about all this stuff, it's not just to make us feel bad, like, oh, we're insufficient, oh, we're not good enough. Okay? We know we're not good enough. We know we are insufficient. And God knows that too. And He loves you anyway. He loves you anyway. You didn't go converting 5 cul-de-sacs this year, this calendar year. You know what? He loves you anyway. And because of that love, we are charged with changing this world. And so my charge for you is to be active in your shining of light. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Hide it under a bushel? No! I'm going to let it shine. That's my charge to you guys. That's my charge to myself. That's my charge to my children. Be light in this world. The world needs it. The default, if we let it, is not a pretty place. We don't need a dark ages here for our children and grandchildren. Anyway, that's what I've got today. Thank you guys again. I appreciate you. I love you guys. And y'all go change the world. All right?
Thank you, Clint, Laura, Jay, and Jackson. Thank you for leading that song. I was thinking while Clint was talking, and I'd seen the statistic before, but I'm curious, does anyone in here consider themselves poor? No, that's good. In America, the standard of living for someone on welfare is higher than 97% of the rest of the world. You know, we have a lot of things available to us, but if you recall, and Clint mentioned that a little bit, we had a time when we went to the grocery store and the shelves were empty. It doesn't take a lot for something like that to happen, and everything changes. And that's not to shame us, that's just to make us understand that even here, we're one disaster or one world war or one whatever away from our standard of living being really diminished. and us having to be more dependent on each other than we probably ever were. And I think that's what God's people are about. There was a survey done during World War I of the percentage of household income that was being given to churches in contribution. I don't know if some college did the study, but the percentage of the household income was higher during World War I when people had almost nothing than it was when we had plenty. Because suddenly people started to realize, sometimes it's in despair and trial that we realize how much we need God. And people were more generous, even though they had less, but they were more generous of what they did have because of their need for God. And it's one of the bad things about disaster and poverty and stuff like that is people suffer. The good thing is it focuses us back on what's important, especially when we get to witness it outside of our own world. I'm very grateful that I live in a country where I don't have to worry about whether or not I can get medicine. And I can't change what's happening in Peru, but I can show people Jesus. I can be tested by people that don't know Jesus without knowing it. There's a story about a preacher that rode a bus every day, and the bus fare was 50 cents or something like that, or 75 cents, I guess, and he had given the bus driver $1, and the bus driver gave him 50 cents in change instead of a quarter. And the preacher's sitting back there on his seat, the bus is making its route, and he kept thinking, it's just a quarter. It was just a mistake. And finally, he goes up there and tells the bus driver, you gave me 25 cents too much in change. And the guy says, it wasn't an accident. I just wondered if you believed what you taught. And we get tested like that in small ways, whether it's somebody handing us the wrong change or somebody just looking at us in line and we're being unkind to somebody else. The limits are not even measurable. But as God's representatives in our community, whether it's here or we go out into another country, it is to be hands and feet of Jesus. And if you don't feel like you've been the hands and feet of Jesus, or if you would want to be the hands and feet of Jesus, as Steve often says, we're a body of priests. Please let someone near you know if you want to be baptized, if you want to study with someone, if you need help with something from the church that we can help you with. If you're struggling, we want to be community. We want to be the kind of community that loves one another. So as we go out through the week, if you need something that we can serve you with, let us know. If you see someone you can serve them. And let's make this town and this community and this area better because of our love for Christ. Would you pray with me, please? Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for having our eyes open to things that we don't have to deal with. And yet so many people that are far away from us deal with it and think it's normal. So Lord, help us to change what we can. Help us to be a part of what's better for those around us. Help us to be a source of encouragement. Help us to be a source of relief. And in all of that, Lord, let us show your love and your light to others. We ask this in Jesus' name. Thank you. Amen.